After I sacrificed everything to clear my parents' $280,000 debt, they sold our family home behind my back until they discovered I wasn't the fool they thought I was. They disposed of the property, our family home, right after I cleared every penny of their $280,000 obligation. I'm Kelsey Monroe, and wherever you're viewing from, share with me below, have you ever been exploited by your own family? Treated like a human ATM? It happened on a Wednesday. The sunlight was beginning to fade behind the towering pines surrounding our front porch. I had just finished my second hospital shift, drained but satisfied. The evening prior, my mother had wept in my embrace, saying I rescued our family. My father, who rarely showed affection during my childhood, held me in the strongest hug. "You're our savior," he murmured. I trusted their words. I thought, at last, I had value. I stepped from my vehicle with yesterday's joy still glowing on my face. But something felt off. The window treatments had vanished. The driveway stood vacant. The garden beds Mom constantly tended were destroyed. I hurried to the entrance. The key still worked, but the interior was stripped bare. Across the wooden floor lay a white note bearing my name in hasty handwriting. "Thanks for repairing our finances, fool. We relocated to Florida with your sibling. Don't contact us." No name, no regret, just that. I released the note, collapsed to the ground, then pulled myself outside to the front yard like a spirit. Passers-by waved as if nothing had changed. I felt like screaming. I wanted to destroy something. Instead, I remained there quietly, absorbing the reality. Then I grinned because my parents were unaware of one crucial detail. When I settled the mortgage the previous week, I had ownership transferred into my name. Secretly, carefully. Every paper signed, witnessed, recorded, making their attempted transaction invalid. And within 24 hours, they would discover what happens when you betray the wrong child. Let's simply say they would rue every cent I ever provided them. I didn't weep. I didn't shout. I simply sat watching the evening light wash over my legs like crimson while the message crumpled in my grip. They actually went through with it. Exploited me like a checkbook, then discarded me like unwanted mail. But what they were oblivious to was that while they plotted, I was observing. For the first time, ever, I had stopped believing their promises and began examining the details. Let me explain how this began. 6 months earlier, I was resting in my vehicle after a 12-hour shift. I had been staying with a friend after my partner evicted me, but I refused to remain a burden any longer. That evening, I received a call from Mother. She was weeping. "Kelsey, we're facing foreclosure. Your father made poor financial decisions. We owe $280,000. That property was my sole connection to stability. The same porch where I celebrated my 5th birthday. The steps I would sneak down every Christmas morning. Losing it meant losing part of myself." I questioned them. "What happened to Grandpa's inheritance money?" "Oh, darling," Mom whimpered. "We used it for your brother's startup. You understand his struggles. Naturally, Evan, the favored son. He wrecks every vehicle, destroys every opportunity, betrays every partner, yet somehow remains their protected one. Still, I couldn't watch my childhood sanctuary get sold at auction. So I emptied my accounts, maxed my credit, even secured a personal loan. They were stunned when I arrived with a folder containing certified checks. Dad fell silent. Mom collapsed to her knees. "You're a blessing," she whispered. They prepared meals, captured photos, shared posts like I was a returning soldier. And I was simply grateful to feel noticed. That's what truly hurts. I wasn't just robbed of funds. I was stripped of the fantasy that they cherished me equally. But now that fantasy was shattered, and I was finished being their financial backup because while they packed for Florida, I was completing the ownership transfer. They never noticed the documents I requested them to sign for the refinancing. And now as I stood on my vacant lawn, all I experienced was control. They believed they had taken everything, but they actually granted me permission to sever all ties. The following morning, I visited the title office wearing a black sweatshirt and dark glasses. I didn't want recognition, not from shame, but because I wanted the shock to strike like thunder when it reached them. "Miss Monroe," the clerk beamed, pushing the folder across the desk. "Everything's finalized. Your parents' attempted sale is invalid. The property remains legally yours." I nodded once, composed externally. Internally, I was blazing. The purchasers had already transferred money to my parents' shared account. But since the title was never theirs, they had committed fraud, a serious crime. I didn't want them imprisoned. Not immediately. Prison would be too easy. I wanted them trapped, displaced, embarrassed. I exited the office into gentle breeze. Checked my device. For missed calls from a Florida number. I waited. Let them panic. That evening, I contacted the local sheriff's department and reported an unauthorized sale attempt on my property. I sent the buyer's representative all my paperwork. Within 2 hours, the transaction was halted. The moving vehicles reversed course, but Mom and Dad had already departed. They imagined they were enjoying cocktails in Boca Raton by now. Instead, they were about to learn their dream home was non-existent. Their bank account would be frozen under legal hold, and their golden child son was about to discover how destructive his own spouse could become when her aspirations crumbled with a broke, unemployed mama's boy. I waited. I didn't message, didn't call, didn't clarify. I simply posted one status to my Facebook. If you ever feel exploited, don't get mad, get clever, and always check the deed. Then I disabled my notifications. Let them wonder. Let them unravel. That evening, I sat in the empty front room alone and chuckled because I was no longer the girl who pleaded for affection. I was the woman who possessed the house. They were now intruders in a world they thought they controlled. The first message arrived at 2:17 a.m. Where are you? Why is the bank claiming the house isn't ours? Call immediately. Then 2 missed calls. Then one from Evan, then one from a Florida number, without identification. I didn't respond. I simply lay in bed, lights extinguished, phone face down, grinning into the darkness. Let them suffer in bewilderment. By morning, they were falling apart. Evan finally left a recording. His voice mixed fury and terror. You need to resolve this, Kelsey. You destroyed everything. Mom's experiencing chest pain. Dad screaming at everyone. You find this amusing? You owe thousands. You have one day before we pursue legal action. Legal action? Against a home I owned? Purchased with my money? After being deceived with embraces and false tears? I prepared breakfast and coffee while replaying the message on speaker. Loudly, just for the resonance. Then I sent one group message to all 3. Per Florida law, attempting to sell property you don't own constitutes fraud. I have complete documentation. The sale is void. Funds will be returned to buyers, and the house remains mine. Since you departed so hastily, I assumed you wouldn't mind me changing the locks. Silence. 3 hours elapsed. Then another recording. This time from Mom. She was crying again. But it sounded different now. This wasn't a please rescue us cry. This was the sound of pride crashing down. Sweetie, we made an error. We were just trying to restart. We didn't expect you'd go this far. Your dad didn't mean what he wrote. He panicked. Can we discuss this? Oh, you don't negotiate with someone who stabbed you while embracing them. You walk away while they hemorrhage from their own weapon. Instead, I called the HOA and reported unauthorized listing activity. I updated city records to flag the property under dispute in case they attempted anything again. I didn't seek vengeance. I wanted accountability. So I began planning the next phase. Not from hatred, but from cold, clear thinking. Because when your own family weaponizes your love, you stop being their daughter and become their consequence. I knew Evan would break first. He always does. Pressure affects him like a flame to dry kindling. Fast, loud, and worthless. He called from a block number. I answered silently. Kelsey. His voice was quiet, defeated. Claire departed. She took the children. Said she can't marry a financially reckless man-child. He discovered the letter Dad wrote you. The one saying, thanks for fixing our credit, fool. He sniffled, then laughed bitterly. She called me a parasite. I didn't speak. I let him continue. Mom and Dad are sleeping on an air mattress in Uncle Brian's basement. He won't allow them to stay past next week. They're saying we should return and try to reconcile. They want to move back into the house. I finally responded. There is no we, Evan. You made that clear the day you watched me empty my account and never even said thanks. Silence. They're your parents, Kels. You really abandoning them on the street? I smiled so broadly it ached. Funny. That's precisely what they did to me. No more pretending. I wasn't their cash cow anymore. I was the reckoning. Over the following days, I began a transformation. New locks, new furnishings, new existence. I repainted the corridor that still displayed my childhood height measurements, penciled on the frame. Not because I despised my history, but because I was finally done letting it haunt me. Then I received a call from an attorney. Their attorney. He inquired if I'd consider amicable compensation, a family-centered solution. I asked one question. Did they inform you they left me homeless 5 years ago when I needed shelter? Said Evan needed his space, more than I needed a roof. He paused. No, Ms. Monroe. They omitted that. I hung up. I didn't need courtroom justice. I had something superior. Authority. Tranquility. They could chase paperwork all they desired, but the foundation was mine. The mortgage in my name and their false Florida dream turned to ash in their grasp. I didn't burn bridges. I simply stopped constructing ones where they only walked over me. The day the moving truck arrived at my house, not theirs, I stood in the driveway barefoot in leggings and a sweatshirt, drinking iced coffee like it was a sacred ceremony. The neighbors waved. Some approached to ask if my parents were returning. I smiled. No, just clearing out the past, creating space for a future that truly belongs to me. Inside, I opened the hallway closet, found Mom's old wedding photos, Evan's high school trophies, Dad's dusty box of important papers, insurance he never maintained, tax documents he never completed. I boxed everything, labeled it return to sender, sealed it shut. Then I drove it to Uncle Brian's. When he opened the door, the odor of stale coffee and unwashed clothes hit me. I could see them behind him. Mom with disheveled hair, Dad with sunken eyes, Evan on the floor in sweatpants, scrolling like a phantom. I didn't enter, just placed the box on the porch. Dad reached for it, eyes flickering with something resembling hope. "Kelsey, you should have simply said thank you," I said, "instead of treating me like your personal bank." Mom opened her mouth, but no words came. She appeared thinner, not from sorrow, from finally bearing her own burden. I turned to leave, but then Evan rose. "Kelsey, wait. What are we supposed to do now?" I paused, then said the most truthful thing I've ever told him. Figured out like I always had to. And I departed. No screaming, no tears, just footsteps disappearing into their silence. That evening, I changed my phone number, deleted the family group chat, and blocked them all. And for the first time in years, my mind was peaceful. No more guilt, no more attempting to be the good daughter, the fixer, the forgiver. They taught me love was conditional. So I gave them exactly what they gave me. Nothing. Because when someone steals your trust and sells your kindness like merchandise, you don't return and purchase it again. You secure the entrance and keep the key. Weeks passed, no calls, no messages, no apologies, just quiet. It was the most peace I'd ever experienced. I spent my mornings in the sunroom reading books I'd once sold to pay their debts. I repotted Mom's old orchids, the ones she always claimed were too fragile to survive. They flourished for me. I enrolled in a pottery class. I painted the guest bedroom walls ocean blue. And I converted Dad's old office, the one I was never permitted to enter as a child, into a studio for my own venture, a space for me. Then one morning, I received an email from Claire. Not Evan. Claire. Subject line: "I know everything and I apologize." She told me about the day they arrived in Florida. How my parents treated her like unpaid staff. How they expected her to cook, clean, and smile while they spent the remaining money from the sale that never was on cruise pamphlets and expensive drinks. Then she found the letter. The one that started everything. She confronted Evan. He blamed me. That's when she decided to leave. "I thought Evan was a man," she wrote. "But he's just your father with a younger face. And you're the only one who ever displayed real integrity. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." She concluded with, "If you ever want to talk, really talk, I'm here. Woman to woman." I didn't respond. Not yet. Not because I was angry, but because I was finally protecting the one person I should have chosen all along. Me. Sometimes healing looks like closure. Other times it looks like keeping the door locked even when someone knocks with sincerity. I wasn't ready to open it, but I didn't hate her for trying. As for Evan, I heard he moved into a cheap studio near Tampa. No wife, no vehicle, no job, just him and his arrogance. Last I heard, he tried to trade NFTs. It failed. Of course it did. My parents? Uncle Brian evicted them after they missed rent for the third time. They're now bouncing between motels, posting blurry Facebook updates, pretending everything's fine. But I know better because when you tear down the only child who ever supported you, eventually the ground disappears beneath you. And the fall is silent. Last week, I walked past a homeless man sitting by the fountain. He looked up and for a split second, I saw my father, but it wasn't him. Just the same slouched posture, the same empty stare of someone who gambled everything and lost. I kept walking because I didn't know compassion to people who fed off my suffering. That evening, I lit a candle in the hallway, the one I used to hide in when they argued. I stood there barefoot, grounded in silence, and I finally let myself say it aloud. I did the right thing. Not because they suffered, but because I stopped. Stopped begging to be loved. Stopped paying to belong. Stopped distributing second chances like loose change. They thought they taught me strength through suffering. But I learned my strength in walking away. That house is mine now. Every brick, every inch. But it's not about the deed. It's about the peace. No more calls. No more guilt trips wrapped in religious quotes. No more birthday messages from Evan asking for just a little help until payday. I blocked them all digitally, emotionally, eternally. Now I plant flowers where they once buried resentment. I host friends who say thank you and mean it. I laugh in the kitchen without hearing a slammed door down the hall. I even started writing again, a memoir perhaps, not to expose, but to liberate. To remind myself, I am not the sum of what I paid for others. I am the worth they never recognized and the home they'll never enter again. Because this chapter didn't end in revenge. It ended in reclamation. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just stopped saving them from themselves.